I'm excited today to sit down with Dan Blondal, the CEO of Nano One. Nano One is disrupting the battery supply chain by providing more cost-effective, longer-lasting, and safe battery materials. And what's really interesting is that they are developing this technology right here in Canada. This means that Nano One is not only paving the way for a more sustainable future, but they're also solving some of our global manufacturing challenges. This is extremely important in helping us get closer to achieving Canada's goal of net zero emissions by 2050. Well, we've got Dan here today, CEO of Nano One. Thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Lindsay. Thank you.
It's really great to see you in person. You're so busy changing the world that we. Do you get that often? No.
Changing the world, not yet.
No, not yet.
But it's coming.
But it's coming, right? It's coming. So speaking about changing the world, you guys have really invested in a strategy around battery materials that actually has a huge impact on the global supply chain. Tell me a little bit about Nano One to start, and then we're going to get into the details a little bit.
So Nano One's a technology company focused on process technology, chemical processes, to improve the way that cathode materials are made for lithium-ion batteries. A cathode material is a mixture of lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt, aluminum, and a whole bunch of other things, or there's various flavors of cathode materials. They all have lithium in them. The other metals define things like voltage and the amount of energy it can store and how safe it is and all of that. So we have a process for making the cathode materials that drives down cost, environmental footprint, water usage, waste streams, and it allows us to sort of decouple from some of the intransigent supply chains that actually exist in Asia.
You're not doing the battery production. You're actually looking and creating the materials and partnering with other businesses.
Correct. So the supply chain, you kind of have to understand the supply chain, how it works. There's mining, and then you refine those materials, then you purify them, and then you process them together to make a functional cathode material. That's what we do. So we're at the point where lithium and nickel are combined.
Right.
That material then goes off to a cell producer who will then put it onto a piece of foil and then roll it into a cylindrical battery or fold it into a flat battery like you might have in the back of your phone. And then that will go off to someone who puts a whole bunch of them together into a battery pack and stick it in a car or a vacuum cleaner or whatever application it's in. So that's kind of, we fit right in the middle, right between mining and the battery.
Do you have a patented process called One Pot?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Tell us. Yeah, many patents actually. So when we say patented, we have 40 patents currently issued in Canada and the US and China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan. European ones are out there. And then we have another 50 or so that are being examined and prosecuted at any time.
Who would your main competitors be in the space?
Yeah. China really dominates the space, and there are really two dominant chemistries right now, what we call the NMC, nickel, manganese, cobalt-based lithium-ion batteries.
Mm-hmm. Which has been the preferred
generally because of the higher energy density it's really at the cathode level in the chemical powders that I guess you put on the foil. And then there's lithium iron phosphate, LFP. And those are the two dominant chemistries. In China now, LFP has grown to about 60 or 70% market share. And largely because it's safer, cheaper, longer lasting. Mm-hmm. And they figured out a way at the pack level. So when you put it into a car, they figured out how to pack more LFP cells in between the wheels than NMC cells because it's safer. And so that's given them the range and the energy density to compete. So as a result, you're seeing while NMC was kind of the preferred one to start with, we're seeing LFP really take over in China.
One of the things that's interesting about this too is we saw with COVID how supply chain issues really became a big deal. And there's a lot of discussion, not to make this about politics, but there is a lot of discussion between, should we focus more on a global outlook versus a national outlook? And I think what I'm hearing is the ability for Nano One to bring this technology out of Canada really allows North America, first and foremost, even though I know you guys are focused globally in the long run, but it allows you to bring this technology kind of as a homegrown solution to some of those supply chain risks, if you would have it.
Yeah. I mean, look, no one wants a supply chain located in one place. It doesn't really matter where it is because there's ultimately a risk, and so we need diversified supply chains. If COVID taught us anything, if the freighter stuck in the Suez Canal taught us anything, it's that we can't have it all going down one road, right?
Yeah.
And so really diversification, localization of the supply chains becomes a really important part of the strategy.
So you obviously saw this as an opportunity and said, okay, we're gonna go down this path. What was that aha moment when you went, this is the path that we need to take and this is the direction? Was it well after you had started Nano One? Like, did you have that aha moment before you started, or was it while you were going through this process or a process in developing the materials and then went, oh, this is bigger than I initially realized?
It's certainly the latter. If I look back not that far to 2020, early in 2020, we saw an emergence in the marketplace that actually really accepted, wanted to see environmental change. This is part of the whole ESG kind of drive. All of a sudden, there was investing in that space. Our technology always had that element to it, but no one wanted to pay for it. No one was really that interested in it. So the first aha comes in January 2020.
Okay.
It was like someone turned on the light switch and they said, oh, this is important. The second one came quite recently, recognizing that China largely owns the nickel market because of all the investment they've done in Indonesian mining. That makes nickel very difficult to process in the Western world, and that makes lithium iron phosphate a more suitable candidate for electric vehicles because it can be decoupled from those supply chains and made more secure in a North American or Western context. So it's fascinating to me how these supply chains, way down at a level that most people don't understand, are actually affecting how the world adopts these technologies and how we transition into the sort of clean energy future. The midstream is the most resistant to change because they're kind of squeezed from both sides, right? And so they don't want to change their chemical process. It's expensive. We have to work with their customers and their suppliers to bring that change in. So working with the big, large integrated miners and the big electric vehicle companies, they're the ones with the vision. They're the ones who want to collapse the supply chain, make it simpler. They want to reduce GHGs. They want to build a long-term future for their products that is sustainable from an environmental point of view, that is sustainable from a business point of view.
So the scalability of the technology is critical for widespread adoption. How scalable are Nano One's processes?
So from the get-go, we've tried to design the processes to be scalable, and maybe just give you a sense of this. So if you're mixing something in a little tiny beaker, it's really the same temperature all the way through the beaker because it's just a tiny little amount. And when a reaction happens, it happens locally, like through the whole beaker. As you get bigger and bigger and bigger, what happens is that the reaction might be different in the middle than it is on the outside or the top, and the temperature might be different. And so that's the scalability problem in chemical processing. So you have to design your process so that actually the reactions happen fairly uniformly and fairly consistently in the same amount of time. So we've designed our process to do that. A year and a half ago, we finished the acquisition of a company, a Canadian company, Johnson Matthey Battery Materials, their Canadian division. They had the only lithium iron phosphate production facility outside of Asia. We were able to go in and remove all of the wastewater handling and all of the waste chemical handling because we have no waste stream in our process. By getting rid of that and then using their full-scale reactors and various equipment in there, we can demonstrate that the technology works at full scale. You
mentioned that it is a huge hurdle in terms of the Western economy. How are you reaching these companies? And what are the hurdles that they foresee in terms of partnering with a company like Nano One?
Well, the biggest hurdle is innovation risk, I would say. So technology tends to be, it's already proven, it's being used out there. And so the industry likes to bring in technology that's already used and plop it in place and just make it bigger and wider and longer and deeper. But if you layer on a piece of technology, let's say it's going to cut down water usage or it's going to cut down energy, but it's unproven, there is a reluctance to adopt that because it's disruptive.
Right.
And I would say that so innovation disruption is very difficult to drive in the industry, and that's probably the biggest challenge. So when we're talking to a big automotive company, that's the risk that they see, and they need to see de-risked. But the problem is you're trying to de-risk that in the face of competing with existing batteries coming out of Asia, which have environmental issues. There's all kinds of things attached to them, but they have a certain performance and cost, and you kind of have to compete from ground zero, where they've got a 10-year head start.
Sustainability, trendy word, means a lot of different things to many people. We talked about it briefly, but can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah. So we see sustainability in a couple of ways. There's the environmental sustainability. So can you actually build this product without creating this massive pile of waste or using excess energy? We certainly don't want to be using our valuable renewable energy sources unwisely. So we have to be good stewards of the environment. So that's one part of it. And you have to be able to do it well into the future. And that's where the word sustainability really comes in. But it's also economic sustainability and security sustainability. Like, can we create a secure, economically viable and environmentally responsible supply chain well into the future? And so we look at it really on all three of those levels.
Yeah, it sounds like you've said in the last 4 years, people are now listening as opposed to, and I think disruption and change is always something that's incredibly difficult. Many tech startups have gone through that challenge, and it definitely helps when the world starts going, no, disruption is going to be, is essential to our success and our future. So finally, looking beyond the applications of Nano One's technology, how do you envision the role of it shaping the future of society and the economy overall?
Well, our mantra is changing how the world makes battery materials or cathode materials.
I know, I'm pushing it a little bit here.
Yeah. And I think maybe what I can tell you is what's our plan outside of Canada, and I think maybe this is the really key thing. So we have this plant in just outside of Montreal in Candiac, the name of the community. It's on the south shore of the St. Lawrence. And we are demonstrating technology at scale, but it becomes, our learnings there and everything we define there becomes really the kernel for a turnkey design of a plant, or kind of a design once, build many strategy. So we plan to build in Canada. We would definitely want to do that. But really our key objective here is to take it and take this plant and plop it all over the world. We want to bring a technology that solves the water waste problems, the chemical waste problems, is economically competitive with existing technologies in Asia, and at the same time provides a way for them to form their supply chains that's secure. We can't change the supply chain by being one company. You have to have the technology in many hands, right? So the strategy to build these plants and license them out to many different players is key to the adoption of the technology by the automotive companies, and it's key to changing the supply chain. So the license strategy isn't just capitally efficient for us, but it's actually, I believe, it's absolutely necessary to commoditizing the materials, making them widely available to a large section of the population for electric vehicles and for renewable energy storage and the whole energy transition.
I'm curious, on the days before your success started to happen, there must have been many challenging days up and down, as every entrepreneur experiences. What inspired you on those hardest days to just keep going?
Well, just to be fair, Lindsay, I don't think the hard days are over.
I know, but I'm just trying to get...
There are still sleepless nights, and I'm sure there will be more in the future. Look, what inspires me is building a company and watching people kind of grow up in it and contribip. To me, I don't get to do the geeky stuff. I get to talk about it, but I don't get to do it. And so watching it happen to me, that gives me great inspiration. And the second thing is doing something that I never thought I'd be doing. I never thought I would be working with government at very senior levels, trying to change how the sort of the ecosystems work. I never thought I would be in a position where I was helping to educate and inform some of the big decisions that are happening in the world to do with supply chain, to do with security. These are all things that we have morphed into, have become very important. So I feel a responsibility to contribute to that. I feel that we have perhaps it's a moral imperative. I don't want to sound all high and mighty, but it's a moral imperative really to be good stewards of the environment, to use our energy wisely, to use our waterways wisely, to use our battery materials wisely. When we have to mine all this stuff out of the ground, we need to make sure that when it's in a vehicle or when it's sitting in, storing energy, that it's doing work for us all day long.
If I was talking to one of your former employees or a current employee, how would they describe your leadership style?
I would say my leadership style starts with by example. So lead by example. I'm collaborative. I like to include people in on decisions. I like to be informed. So I like to have a team around me that actually has the know-how and knowledge to bring to the table. So it is very much a collaborative style.
How do you foster innovation on a daily basis within your organization?
Well, I think we have to give people a sense of ownership in the solutions, and give people a sense of the larger vision. And we can always do a better job of that. As we go through a growth phase, you lose touch sometimes with and you lose touch with your employees, and you have to be able to step back and say, okay, hold on a second. We've got this grand vision, and I'm out there saying it every day, but people at work don't necessarily hear that. So we have to step back and always be trying to communicate that back. And we're not flawless at it, but we endeavor to make sure that people understand the bigger picture in the long run.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, because I think that it is any company that's pioneering and always thinking forward. It is often the CEO that's out there in the world, kind of spreading that message and sharing all the success stories. And often the team is in the background, and they're producing all this great work, but it just becomes the everyday. And so sometimes they forget just how groundbreaking and innovative it is. So
or they don't see it. They don't have time to listen to me on podcasts every day. Right? So.
Exactly. It's true. Oh, what advice would you give other technology entrepreneurs or people working in the technology industry to maintain effective communication throughout the early stages of building and pioneering and breaking new ground?
Certainly communication has been a huge part of our story. As you know, it's complicated. So whether we're talking to an individual investor, kind of giving them some comfort that we know what we're talking about, or talking to the media, trying to explain to them, or at least find the thing that's kind of most interesting to them. We have spent a tremendous amount of time thinking about the story, thinking about how to tell it, rejigging it all the time. I probably have 10,000 PowerPoint presentations that are just an evolution of one after the other. And those are, that's, I'm exaggerating. 10,000.
No, but it feels that way, right? It feels that way as you're going through it, and you're like, oh, I could say this better, and then you try it, and then you come back to it, and it's optimizing. You're optimizing that
and you're
story.
Constantly practicing and trialing ideas on on and on audiences, and getting a sense of how they gauge it. You're out there looking for information from other people to as the whole ecosystem evolves, and then to turn that into a cohesive message, of course, for communication. But also to turn that into a product. Can't just be about messaging. We have to actually then refine our process to make it compatible with the near future. We had lots of support, obviously, from our shareholders. I think the biggest thing that boosted us was the government support we had through this. That's Natural Resources Canada. That's ISED, which is the Innovation, Science and Economic Development of Canada, or Industry, Science and Economic Development, and then those all the other programs. So super important to what we're doing. And then across the border as well. So the U.S. government, be it from the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, the State Department, all very involved in what we're doing, and really, really like what we're doing, because we're solving security issues for North America. So that's become a very important.
How would you describe your culture, and do you think of it as unique to some of the other tech companies that are out there in the same, not in similar space, but in sciences and in engineering?
Well, I would say we have similar challenges in terms of the kind of talent that we need to attract and the kind of culture that we need to build as sort of hard tech companies in the space. I think where we differ from so many other companies is that we're trying to take the technology to a new level. We're not just trying to make batteries to stuff between wheels today, or make the materials that go into those batteries. We're trying to make the next generation of materials that go into those batteries, and that I think is fundamentally different than 99% of the companies out there. Most people are just trying to address the immediate need. We're trying to address the future need, because we recognize that there are massive hurdles. Big environmental hurdles, there's big sustainability hurdles, and there's big security hurdles that have to be solved, and they're coming fast, and we have to solve them. So really really creating that sense of urgency, that sense of purpose is very important to what we do.
Dan, you've shared a lot about Nano One today, the technology, your future plans, a little bit about the company culture. I'm curious, for people who are watching, what is the one takeaway that you would share about the industry overall that people should have on their radar in the coming years?
LFP has now grown to 60-70% market share in China, and it's virtually nothing anywhere else. Korea woke up last year and figured out they've been staunchly NMC, long-range electric vehicles. They figured out they need LFP. It's fundamental to their growth strategy, to their energy strategy, to energy security, and to access to the North American markets. And it's coming to the West. So that's probably the first thing. The follow-on to that is Nano One has, with our one pot process, we have a solution to drive down the cost, make it competitive with LFP in Asia. We can drive down the GHG and the energy intensity. We can drive down the capital cost of making the plants. We have a strategy for, as I mentioned earlier, design once, build many, modular plant design that can be kind of made to happen very quickly, rolled out very quickly around the world. And we're able to eliminate all the wastewater, all the waste sulfate, and eliminate the security risk and the ties to the existing supply chains by being able to leverage the existing sources of nickel and iron in the Western world.
Well, thank you very much, Dan, for being on Breaking New Ground today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And anybody interested in getting more information on Nano One, they can visit your website, which is on the screen. Do we want to point up, down, around, everywhere, or just have it everywhere?
You can spell it out.
Spelling, yes. Okay, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.